the Nog has landed.
Man, you have no idea how much Nog has landed.
Wait, really?
I made 5.5 gallons of Nog.
Whoa, all in one container? How do you store that much Nog?
Let me tell you, I did not adequately plan out my Nog making plans. So I made 2 batches, one that was about like, a gallon, and then one that was 15 liters. And I didn't adequately think about how you would mix up 15 liters of eggnog when I was making that first batch. Cause it should, like, my biggest container is like one of those plastic Kembo prep bins that they use at restaurants. That's 12 liters that I use for like sous videing stuff. And it was not adequate to mix. So I had Nog in 3 containers and then had to mix it. Like, that puzzle in Die Hard, the third Die Hard movie, where they have like a 5-liter bucket and a 3-liter bucket, and they have to get 4 liters of water in the bucket.
I haven't seen that movie in 20 years, but I'll just go along with you. Yes.
Okay. I had basically, Gina and I were doing that and like ladling back and forth to get everything mixed up right. Then result is it turned out okay.
Okay. I was going to ask, is there any kind of agitating process in the Nog making? Is there, like, does it need to be circulated? Or, I mean, are you doing it you're making bathtub Nog? What's going on?
Well, okay. So it's a multi-step. It's a 2-step process. First step is, it's a 3-step process. First, you have to separate out a bazillion eggs because you just need the yolks. So Gina spent a couple hours cracking eggs.
Wait, it's the yolks?
It's only the yolks.
Oh, why did I think it was the whites?
No, the whites would be the whites you use if you do like a foam or a froth or make meringue or something like that. Right? Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Or an egg cream, I think, has whites.
It is distinctly not yellow.
It's because of all the cloves. The cloves make it kind of darker color. Interesting. So it starts out bright yellow, and then when it sits for a day, it turns a little brown.
No kidding.
Yeah. So she cracked 110 eggs, I think.
Wow.
And then we added to that 3.5 gallons of milk, a gallon and a half of heavy cream. A gallon of heavy cream, 5 pounds of sugar, 6 pounds of sugar, half a bottle of cloves, quarter of a bottle of cloves, half a bottle of nutmeg, and stir all that up with a whisk. Now, this is where the problem came in, because we had at this point 15 liters of liquid and a 12-liter container. So
you had Nog Ambitions this year.
Look, mistakes were also we bought the wrong lid. So apparently every hipster in North America has gotten into canning during the back half of all the people making sourdough in April are canning now.
Last year it was a chicken coop. This year it is canning on the list of things that my grandparents did just as a matter of course while I was growing up, that people are adopting in urban environments now.
Well, the TLDR is you can't get canning supplies. So I couldn't get mason jars or lids. And we ordered narrow neck jars and wide neck lids. And those are not compatible. So we had to, anyway, work was done and it all worked out in the end. But
thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I instantly put the jar in the very back of the fridge, or the shelf in the fridge, so that I wouldn't be tempted to just grab it.
Well, I mean, you have enough. You're going to drink like the tiniest bit at a time if you're like me.
Look, it's never enough. Okay.
Are you a rum nog or a bourbon nog?
Got to deploy that nog strategically. You got to stretch it out. I think I only tried bourbon last year. I don't think I didn't know you could do rum. I thought it was purely a brown whiskey type.
Well, it's so like a
situation.
Like traditionally, I think it's dark rum, like a Myers type, Okay, maybe
I'll give that a shot. That sounds all right.
I'll do a little bit of I'm usually a bourbon. Like I like a mild, like a sipping bourbon, like a Basil Hayden or a rye sometimes maybe.
Yeah, I got some rye here.
And just a splash. You just want that a hint, right? You don't want to taste the booze.
Of course.
Yeah.
Wait, I can't put a whole shot in there.
You do. I'm not telling you what to do. You do you.
Okay. Look, you have your Nog Ambitions. I have mine. All right.
welcome to Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. I'm Will.
I'm Brad. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Okay, we got to talk about food safety for just a second, though, because this is important. Here's the thing that people don't know. It's not the bacteria that you eat and makes you sick. It's the byproducts of the bacteria that make you sick. So
yes,
if you have food that is spoiled, it is the bacteria and the whatever fungus, whatever's in there that's making it bad, is excreting poison.
Yeah, it's not the bacteria, it's the bacteria's poop.
Yeah, so when you heat up the food to kill the bacteria, that only does something if it hasn't excreted the poison yet. The poison will still be there if you cook it. So this is why like eating canned stuff that has botulism will still mess you up, is because you still have botulism, the botulism toxin. So you got to do the pasteurization and the cooking before it goes bad in order. Anyway, that's it. That's my food safety thing. Okay.
Be warned is what you're saying.
Yeah. Don't jack around with the nog is what I'm saying.
Or again, just marinate your pork in
battery acid
and or just a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah. Yeah, that works.
Don't actually do that.
No, that would be really gross.
That only applies to nog.
Brad, what are we doing this week? What are we talking about? This is the last episode of the year of 2020.
It is the last episode of the year, and I guess let's look back on this accursed benighted year.
This reminds me of the classic Star Trek Voyager season finale, The Year of Hell.
You know what? I started to very snarkily say there are no classic episodes of Voyager. But then you said that one, and I've never seen that episode, but that is the episode I always see cited as like, if more Voyager was like this episode, it would have been pretty okay.
So you know what they were going to do with that originally? So the setup is the shit starts going bad on the Voyager, and like people start dying, and like you're watching this episode, you're like, God, they just killed off half the crew. And like it eventually ends up with like Janeway's descent into madness, right? That was originally going to be a whole season arc, and they chickened out and only did 2 episodes.
Oh, it's a two-parter?
It's a two-parter. It's a best of both worlds. It's like season finale, season opener.
And does it literally, as the name implies, does it literally take place over the course of a year?
Yeah.
That in itself, even if they chickened out of the season idea, like that's kind of cool. Like the idea of an episode that takes place over that long period of time.
It is a very good. It is. I haven't watched all of Voyager. It is the one episode of Voyager that I watched. So this is as good as anything else that Star Trek has ever done.
I should pull that up.
Yeah, you have enough context to know what's going on. Voyager's fine.
Let's not be hasty, man.
Look,
you just.
Man, we've done 3 cold openers now. Voyager is as good as the first 2 or 3 seasons of TNG.
Ooh, I don't think about what you're saying there, because the first 2 seasons of TNG are pretty rough.
I included the 3rd season intentionally.
The first season in particular is
bad,
borderline unwatchable at times.
Yes, having gone back and watched all of those recently. The first 2 seasons are, until Riker gets that beard, it's just stay away, man.
Yes. The Riker beard rule and the uniform collar rule.
Yeah, when Picard gets that shirt with the open, the velour shirt with the open front.
When they got the collars on they weren't wearing the spandex jumpsuits anymore, and they had like proper collars. That's the rule.
So we're going to talk about the year that was. Sometimes I wake up and I feel like I've just taken a series of naps, and it's still March.
Mm-hmm.
2 days before Christmas when we record this.
Absolutely.
But I am eminently thankful, and I think we both put this at the top of our list at the, like, I was talking to my daughter. We were talking about the flu pandemic in the 1916-18 flu pandemic the other day. She was like, well, did they get vaccines for that? I was like, sweetie, they hadn't invented vaccines yet when that happened. And she, and like, it's 100 years ago. It's kind of incredible that in a century, we've gone from, oh, well, you just got to let this burn itself out, to, well, we can eradicate diseases now, but it takes a, like massive moonshot level effort and 50 years to get rid of something like polio and smallpox and like these what used to be common diseases that had really massive impacts, to like now where we're developing a vaccine with brand new technology that we've never deployed before. And I mean, while undoubtedly we've spent moonshot levels of money on it, we're seeing, first results nine months, a year after the virus started appearing at the end of 2019. That's incredible.
It's crazy. When I think back on like just recent history, like, you know, the things that the state of things within, say, my grandparents' lifetimes.
Yeah.
It's the invention of the vaccine and the invention, or maybe you would call it the discovery of antibiotics. I guess that's a semantic debate. But those two things, or more specifically, the absence of those things, when I think back 100 years, like the thought of what life was like when like the wrong, I don't know, like stepping on a nail or like the wrong kind of cut or scrape or whatever could turn into an infection that would just straight up kill you.
My mom got her arm caught in a like a wringer, like a dryer, like before dryers, washers and dryers. They had, when she was a kid growing up in England, they had like a manual wringer that you ran the clothes through. She got her arm caught in that and got blood poisoning. And like the doctor was like, well, we have this new thing we're going to try on you. And it was penicillin. And like, she probably would have died had it not been for penicillin in the.
Was it? I should double check before I say this. Was it during World War II? I think
during World War II. Yeah.
Like, have you ever read about like the literal? It was in England, right? Is in Britain is where it was first.
I always get Jonas Salk, who's the polio guy. I think
I want to say that's right. But if you ever read about the, like, I think he was like quite literally the first test subject for penicillin. I think.
No, I don't. I'm looking at, I'm on the Wikipedia page right now.
This is from memory, so I hope I'm not getting anything wrong.
Alexander Fleming.
Basically, he had some kind of, whoever the test subject was had some kind of infection, and they tested the penicillin on him, and it worked. But because it was in such short supply, because it was experimental, and they needed it for, you know,
war stuff,
military purposes and so forth, they were not able to give him enough to fully fight the infection off, and it came back and killed him. like they literally found a miracle cure that would have saved his life, but they couldn't make enough of it in time to actually save him, and he died anyway.
Good news, bad news situation, I guess.
Yeah, but just thinking about the range of things that we consider like kind of trivial these days that were straight up death sentences, you know, 100 years ago, in the absence of those two developments, is like not fun to think about.
Well, it's funny. It's changed. Like that is very definitely one of the medical advancements that's changed how we approach like people have fewer kids now because you don't need to have, you're not going to lose a kid or two to stuff like measles and, you know, getting infection and things like that. It's like everything about our society has changed as a result of vaccines and antibiotics.
Yeah, for sure.
And the mRNA vaccines are like, it's absolutely fascinating. You know, having talked to some people who work on that stuff, how that works is like, it means that we're able to design the vaccine to do what we want instead of hoping to isolate something that will do what we're looking for. It's really cool.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
So I haven't followed the development of it's hard to say this vaccine, but it seems there are in fact several vaccines.
Mm-hmm.
They're all. I haven't followed.
They're both mRNA vaccines. So
okay. Well, I think there's at least one more in the wings, right?
There's another one that's not approved yet, and there's more coming. I'm sure.
That's what I mean. Like they're so. I think I read somewhere back in March, April, when this was all really popping off, that like, how was it that they put it? They were just kind of doing everything in parallel and as redundantly and as kind of excessively as possible. You know, like they were not. I guess what I mean is they were not waiting for like the typical kind of phase structure of like, okay, let's do this, and then we'll do, you know, we'll do X and Y, and then we'll do Z once X and Y or whatever. It's like, no, we're going to do X, Y, and Z all at once. We're going to do everything we possibly can. And I assume that's a big part of why this rollout was so accelerated.
Yeah. I mean, it's that they were spending incredible amounts of money doing things that normally would happen sequentially.
Right.
And trying, you know, they like, I have a relative who works for one of the big biotech companies in the Valley, and she like, they had, all teams were pulled off of what they were working on for the most part and shifted over. If they had the right expertise, they were shifted over to trying whatever their approach was for what they were working on onto this.
Right. Was it? I think I want to. So it's Pfizer and Moderna are the two that are approved.
Those are the ones that are approved right now.
I want to say AstraZeneca is also working on
that one is in phase 3 now, but I don't think there's results yet.
So like throwing more resources at the problem, totally fine. Like the part that gets scary is if you wonder if they fudged any of them, not fudged, but kind of like rushed through some of the testing phases. I don't know if that's the case. I assume they still tested in the same quantity that they would have.
So we talked, I talked to Kishore, who was on the podcast in the spring talking about coronavirus, and he is, he's on the California science, the task force, because he's a science communicator and like worked on anti-vax stuff for a long time. And he said specifically that they can't cheat the phase 3 trials. Like they still set up the trial in the same way. So it's double blind so that the company doesn't know who got which samples. Nobody knows which results are which until after the results are all in. And all of that stuff is still like it's the stuff that was accelerated was the developing 50 things simultaneously, not by the time it got to phase 3 trials, it's the normal trial. Yeah. The thing that did accelerate is because we're so bad at wearing masks, we got much faster data about efficacy. I mean, and look, this is one of those things like people, I get just as pissed off as everybody else because I look at the news and I see the pictures of people in bars and like I yelled at my mom this morning for going to the fucking fishmonger to get crab. Like you just don't need crab it's fine. You'll be fine if you don't have crab at Christmas.
Yeah. I found out recently someone I know just went to a church choral service.
Well, don't hang out with them.
Yeah. Well, they're not near here.
But the point though is that like, even though there's a small number of people who are being maniacs and making everything worse, still like at least 70-ish% of people have been doing the same thing that you and I have been doing, stay in their houses, doing their work from home, going out only when it was absolutely necessary, all that for the last 9 months. And like, it would be a lot worse if it weren't as bad as it is now. Yeah. Anyway, it's like the Manhattan Project. I think you wrote that in your thing.
I wrote that in the notes here. Yeah. I don't know how much you know about that, but my understanding of the general way that thing was conducted was that they had so much redundancy in their expertise that every single time they hit a fork in the project, and the vaccine science is pretty well understood. I mean, at this point, they were working with barely understood nuclear physics, so like inventing technology from whole cloth, right? But like every single time they hit a fork where it's like, okay, the right way to do this could be this way or it could be that way. Let's just do both of them at the same time. And they would literally just fork the entire project and try both at the same time. And that just kept happening. And that's how you end up with, my understanding of Fat Man and Little Boy is that they are totally distinct but both viable designs for an atomic weapon.
Yeah, that's my understanding. The third bomb was the same.
Like literally ended up with totally different bombs at the end of the project.
I mean, you also ended up with like
through that method, which is kind of the same thing with these vaccines, right?
You also ended up at some point when we can meet in person again, we'll have Phil Funranium Labs Phil on to talk about.
I'd love to talk to him about. It's kind of a heavy subject. There's a lot of interesting stuff from an abstract, scientific perspective.
He does these great Twitter threads called "Choose Your Own Radiological Adventure." He did a bunch of them this year where like he presents a common situation ranging from Manhattan Project level disasters down to, hey, we have a big sphere of beryllium in this lab and we don't know where it came from. Can you help us figure out who it belongs to and what to do with it?
Just don't touch it with a screwdriver.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's a good topic. Should we? I've spent this year. I spent a lot of time using the laser cutter.
Yeah. You laser cut me some stuff, but I know you laser cut some more important stuff than what you did for me.
Well, like it's funny. I did. In the beginning, I made face shields for like friends and neighbors because I have a couple of neighbors who are frontline workers. I think I offered to make some for you guys, but you ended up not needing them in the end. And I learned how to cut PETG or PTEG. I can't remember which one. PT. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's one of the plastic types that's laser cuttable. It's totally clear. It bends. It's comfortable. And like we were able to make laser face shields. I was able to make as many face shields as I wanted in about three minutes per, which is pretty fast compared to like what we were doing 3D printers and stuff like that. But I've also made a bunch of like picture frames, and I made a Mr. case, and I made you a Raspberry Pi. I made me a bunch of Raspberry Pi cases.
Yeah, you made maybe a Pi case and a fan mount for my Mr.
Yeah,
actually.
And it's like, it turns out I've had 3D printers around the house for years and I don't really use them very much because they're kind of a pain in the ass. They're the one that I have is old and not very good at this point. Like if I was going to do any 3D printing, I would probably just shit can that or give it to a neighborhood kid or something and get something better. But like, it is a really viable, and like it got to the point that I needed a funnel for some dry stuff the other night to go into a really small hole, a hole smaller than I have a funnel for. So I just cut a cone out of the plastic and put a couple of hooks. Like I drew it in Fusion 360. I've learned how to use Fusion 360 enough that I can just jam out a project like for something simple in like 10 minutes, which I was really stoked about. I didn't realize I was there yet. And I'm really thankful for that. I think that's a cool.
It was the little device case stuff you made for me was my probably firsthand experience getting some custom laser cut stuff done. Like obviously laser cutters arguably have like kind of more limited applications than a 3D printer because it kind of needs to be a flat surface. But for those applications, I feel like it's so much nicer. Like that nice, smooth, shiny acrylic is just such a, especially for something you're going to look at, is such a nicer kind of end product. I feel like than the.
Well, that's it's so much faster is the other thing. Like it's impossible to overestimate the difference in time between making. If I had 3D printed one of those Raspberry Pi cases, it's like a 4 or 5 hour print on the printer that I have.
Holy
versus
cow.
Like 5 minutes on the cutter.
No kit for all those layers because that design is like 10.
Well, yeah, because you put one sheet of acrylic in and just let it rip, and it does all the pieces at the same time, and then you go in and pull all the pieces out.
That's cool.
It takes longer to peel the paper, the protective backing off of the pieces than it does to do the cuts usually.
Also, I was not prepared for the smell.
Oh yeah, the burning acrylic smell is horrific.
Oh, well, is it?
It's bad. I hate it.
There's something like kind of like sickly sweet about it. Like kind of, well, maybe it's different in the moment when it's actually burning. I'm talking about, by the time I got my hands on it, it was like, I assume at least a few hours since you had cut it. Maybe it's a lot worse. I cut it
that morning.
I could see it maybe being a lot more accurate in the moment. But by the time I got it, it's just like, it's almost like it's not quite cinnamon. It's not quite nutmeg, but there's like kind of a like, you know what I mean? There's like a kitchen spice kind of smell to it.
It smells like burning like Aunt Jemima high fructose corn syrup pancake stuff.
I didn't hate it.
I wear the respirator
aroma.
when the laser cutter vents outside, obviously, but I put the vent too near the door to the garage. So like I either have to shut the garage door or I usually just wear the respirator when I'm out there because I really hate it. It gives me a headache.
That's probably smart.
Yeah. What else you got?
Well, we mentioned the Mister. I'll bring it up real quick. I mean, I don't even know if did we actually really say what the idea of this episode is. It's just kind of like some tech stuff that we enjoyed from this year.
I think it's high points, right?
Like little look back at this strange year and some of the things that were good about it in this space.
Look, I feel like starting with the coronavirus vaccine and then like we immediately go down about 10 orders of magnitude of importance hey, laser cutting stuff's cool.
Yeah. So like fucking the Mister or whatever. Yeah. I mean, somebody very close to me is getting the first dose of the vaccine this very day.
That's awesome.
This. So it's like it is hitting somewhat close to home. Yeah, I wrote the Mister on here. I know we've talked about it a little bit. Maybe it was just on a patron episode. I don't know if we talked about it on a.
I feel like we talked about it. We did an episode about it, and then we talked about it a lot for a little bit, and then we said we had to stop talking about it because we were talking about it all the time.
Did we do an actual full episode about it?
Yeah, didn't we?
These things are all running together.
You tell us. I haven't had enough naps.
I am waiting for the day. Okay, this happens all the time in my kind of day job main line of work.
Yeah.
When somebody will be like, "Oh, remember what you said about spy fiction on the PlayStation 2 when you reviewed it at GameSpot?" And I'm like, I don't remember that there exists a game called Spy Fiction, much less that I have ever played it and in fact reviewed it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm waiting for that to happen with this podcast where it's like we're gonna record an episode about like battery tech or something and post it, and people are gonna be like, "You guys did that exact same episode like a year and a half ago."
I mean, I tried to do that. Didn't I try to do something in August that we had already done in like April or May early on?
It is entirely possible.
And I think we did at least 2 like coronavirus quarantine tech episodes.
Yeah, well, that was a developing situation. I feel like that's yes. Anyway, I had a lot of fun tinkering with the Mister. You made me that case, which was nice. It was fun building that thing. It's been fun playing stuff on there. The thing that like really touched me though was, have I ever talked on this podcast about dumping my save files from my SNES carts?
I don't know if we ever talked about it on the podcast. You and I have definitely talked about it, but it's fascinating.
And I know I've talked about it on Giant Bomb. I dumped those carts live on a stream one time while people
did you use a Retron or something?
Retrode, I want to say, is the name of that thing.
This is some weird thing Jeff has.
Yes, and it is not easy to get these days. I believe the only place still making them is some place in Germany that's hand building them. And so they're only available occasionally.
Wow.
Yes. I just went to retrode.com, and at the very top, it says, about the Retrode, we're quitting. As of summer 2013, we have stopped producing the Retrode and its accessories.
Wow.
Yeah, like you can still get them, but they're not cheap. Luckily for me, Jeff already had one, and I could just use his for the 30 minutes that I needed it. It's just I think they make it for different consoles. In this case, it was just a Super Nintendo kind of cartridge slot to USB adapter.
Oh, okay.
And then you plug it into the computer, and Windows sees it as a USB storage device, and you literally just like drag and drop the ROM and the save file off of the cart.
Oh man, that's bonkers.
But so I pulled those off, and I don't think I even had to convert them on the Mister. I think I maybe changed the file extension or something. That was it. So, but like that is the actual most touching thing about the Mister, and this dovetails with like it being the holidays and stuff, is that I dumped all those save files off my Super Nintendo games, which mean a lot to me. And suddenly here I am playing like, you know, my original Final Fantasy 3 save that I played through in 1994, you know, or like the one that's super relevant to me is my 96 star, like 100% clear save in Super Mario World that I started on Christmas Day, 1991, 92. But 91.
Oh man, Brad, I have.
Hang on, let me double check. Yes, so yeah, the Super Nintendo came out in 91, and like it was like a time machine, honestly. Like loading up that Super Mario World save from almost 30 years ago, and like just kind of like, oh, this is the level that I left off on 28 years ago, the last time I played this or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's such a weird like kind of window on your past, your distant past, to do stuff like that.
So apparently, so I have a Retron 5 that I haven't used at all since I got the Mister.
And
apparently I think grab them.
I believe the Retron can actually do some of that stuff. I totally forgot about that. You should, yeah. If you have a Retron 5, you should look into that. I think that.
Oh man, maybe I'll set that up. That would be a fun stream
for at least some of the cartridges that it can. Maybe all of them. I don't know.
It looks like I can do GB for sure.
Oh my god, how did I forget about that? This is getting a little inside baseball, but there was one game the Retrode wouldn't work with. I think it was Super Mario RPG, and I think it was because it was one of those games that had a special chip, you know, all the Super Nintendo add-in chips, like the Super Effects, you remember all that stuff? Like there were like 10 different specialty chips that could be on the cartridge. The Retrode couldn't handle whatever format came through that chip, but I had to borrow a Retron to get that saved. So yeah, you totally can.
We should, at some point I want to do an episode where we talk about all of the weird, we should get like Micah or Frank Cifaldi or
Cifaldi would be great.
Or, maybe like somebody who can talk up, maybe Dylan, what's his name from Pixel Junk, Q, is that Q Studios?
Dylan Cuthbert?
Dylan Cuthbert, yeah.
I mean, he's the programmer of Star Fox.
Well, yeah, because he's one of the people that was like, hey, you know, if you put this chip on the cartridge, you can do all this weird stuff. And but yeah, I think modern technology being applied to reverse engineering old technology in the form of old games is like so fascinating. I mean, you know, the Mister, like FPGA is recreating old consoles is kind of the biggest example of that, but like, you know, stuff like leveraging USB to access the contents of a Super Nintendo cartridge. You know what I mean? Bonkers. Did you see the thing last week?
Stuff like that is so fascinating.
Sorry. Did you see the thing last week where they did where somebody took the SNES cart and jammed in an FPGA that could do ray tracing?
Yes.
Yeah. Like that stuff's so fun.
Yes. That stuff's wild.
Ridiculous and over the top. I've really enjoyed, like my Mister has been great. My daughter has like, it is so nice playing those games on an HDTV with no input lag.
Yeah.
And you can actually play them, which is freaking cool.
Speaking of your daughter playing games.
Yeah. I
Wait. What about your daughter developing games?
Oh, no, she's not developing her own game. No.
No. This says watching my kid play and make her own games in 2020.
So when I say that, I mean, like, instead of just going into Animal Crossing and playing Animal Crossing, she and her friends will load up one of their islands and I'll get on the same island and they'll go play hide and seek or freeze tag or like they'll scavenger hunt or whatever.
I was embellishing a little bit about her developing games, but I thought you meant like something in Roblox or something like that, like something like one of those games that has some logic in it that you can actually play with. But you're talking more of the power of Imagineering.
Yeah, they're doing like, and they've been doing this since it's fun because like, one of the things that has made this year tolerable is that when we can't do social activities outside the house for all of us, like my wife, my daughter, and I are all playing a lot of multiplayer games and spending time on, voice chat and hanging out and having fun with friends. And there was a moment, I think it was on Thanksgiving night when I was sitting on the couch and I was just like doom scrolling on the phone. And my wife was playing Animal Crossing on one Switch with her sister who had just gotten a Switch so she could play Animal Crossing with us. My daughter was playing Minecraft in the other room on her Switch, and they were both on FaceTime, both with their phones pointed at the ceiling, talking, using it like a video speakerphone while they're playing games that don't have voice built in. And like it made me think what would have happened if this had all happened in like the late 90s before the internet. And like just the act of getting books.
Yeah. So
we had more books to read would have been challenging.
Sure.
Like think about like you wouldn't have had any way to get information if you had a presidency where the administration was actively working to hide information from the public about how bad things were.
I mean,
there would have been no way for that to get out.
Thank God we'll never have to deal with such a horrifying reality.
But anyway,
this is definitely opening a large can of worms about whether the internet is a net positive or negative on the whole. But you're totally right, though. I mean, like there definitely have been a lot of enormous, video conferencing.
Yeah,
like there have been a lot of huge benefits for sure.
I mean, the ability to order things without having to go someplace or, but like books and like entertainment and food and all of these things.
San Francisco, a lot of smaller towns obviously only have one library, but like San Francisco has got 3 dozen branches, and they closed all but one of them for most of this pandemic. And the one was downtown, meaning I would have to go get on a bus to go there. And like, getting on a bus is not a great idea, much less going to a library. You know what I mean? Like if they didn't have ebooks, if I needed to go get books or Blu-rays or whatever, like that's not an appealing proposition to have to travel somewhere to do that.
Well, yeah. I mean, even if like I'm thinking about the town I grew up in, we had 2 branch libraries and 1 main library. And like, I don't even think they had a parking lot. So you'd street park for all of them. And they're not really an opportunity for curbside pickup or anything like that. Even I'm sure they have it now, but like it is. I'm very thankful that I'm sad. Continue to be sad that this has all happened because it is awful. But I'm very grateful that it happened in a time when like the internet is as developed as it is. Because even in the dial-up days, this would have been rough.
Yeah.
But yeah, the games thing, like we're starting to play. I realized I had enough spare parts around to build her a pretty decent computer with like a 1080 Ti and like,
damn, that's not insignificant for a child's first computer.
Well, I mean, it also is the stuff that I had just laying around that was old parts, right?
I love hearing those stories, and I think it's just because I get such a thrill out of using old stuff instead of throwing it away.
Well,
I love hearing about parents building their kids' hand-me-down computers out of stuff.
Well, this one is the guts of when I first started doing VR stuff before there were laptops that could run VR headsets. This is the guts of the small form factor that I used to schlep around with a handle on it to do VR demos. And it's nice that it's getting use again and updating that version of the 2017 version of Windows until it ran. The 2020 version of Windows was a multi-day affair, but it's all working now and it's good. And I'm pretty stoked about it.
That's cool. Let's see.
You want to talk about SSDs?
Yeah, sure. Again, speaking of games, these new consoles came out and That's been weird.
Yeah.
Not especially in my line of work, never having actually gone somewhere to see them before release. Right.
Normally we would have gone to E3 this year and seen them all then.
Maybe, yeah.
Or GDC probably even.
They probably would have announced them by E3, I guess. It's hard to say. We'll never know, because like so many things were up in the air because of the pandemic, and also like a lot of things were up in the air about E3 regardless of the pandemic. But yeah, like starting with the 360, like I went to play, I think Full Auto was the first 360 game I ever played before the 360 came out.
Wow.
And I played it on a gigantic dev kit. Like there were no final 360 consoles in the hands of the developers.
Were those like G5s or something?
Maybe that might have been the guts of it. I mean, it was a bespoke, like it was a hand built, like bespoke box. It was a gigantic thing. Point is though, like covering consoles before they come out, like that's the cycle, it's like you're going 4 or 5 months before they come out, you're somewhere with the controller in your hands playing one of the games, and like we didn't have any of that this time. So like not seeing them in action, not feeling what the controllers were like having everything wait until they actually came out was like kind of surreal.
I remember taking PC demos even in like 2000, what the E3 before the 360 came out, which would have been 2007?
For which one?
For the 360.
That was 2005 is when the 360 came out.
God, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I remember taking PC demos then where they were like, hey, check this out. And they whipped out a wired 360 controller and you were like,
controllers on a PC?
Yeah.
Do you have a game port? Do you have a game port on that machine?
Yeah, how are you plugging this thing in? You got an adapter? Got some sort of dongle?
Anyway, I bring all that up to say that, not seeing these things before release, like you kind of wondered like, boy, they sure are harping on these SSDs and these things and how fast they're going to be and how that's going to change everything. Like, I hope they're not just blowing smoke about that, especially, because like, so you don't have either one.
I
of them,
wouldn't
right?
know, Brad.
Okay. I'm sorry.
It turns out they're a little bit difficult to get right now.
I'm glad to be an authority here.
Console / anime editor Brad Shoemaker.
But I mean, like the usable storage space in these things is dramatically short of what you would expect from previous gen consoles. Like the usable space in a PS5 is like 600 and something gig. It's not much.
I mean, that's more than my launch PS4 or Xbox One had.
That was 7 years ago, man. Games have ballooned exponentially since then.
I mean, look, I'm aware of the size of a Call of Duty.
All I'm saying is like, there are very obvious downsides to going to these SSDs. Yeah. So you really hoped like, boy, I hope that the upsides are worth like this reduction in space and stuff like that. But they totally are. Like,
are the downloads faster for the new console? Because like,
so yes, but I don't know how much of that to lay at the feet of like the storage versus, the CPUs are also way faster. Also, maybe they've upgraded their CDNs. Who knows? Like there could be a lot of factors there, right?
I'm just curious if it's like viable to like play something and then delete it, and then when you want to play it again, download it again if you have good internet.
Obviously, that depends on data cap situations and speed of internet and stuff like that. But like, I am lucky enough to not have a data cap and have gigabit.
Yeah,
and the downloads on the PS5 are insanely fast.
Oh, sweet!
I wish that they broke out transfer speed. The Xbox does that when you watch a download. The PS5, you just kind of have to eyeball how fast the number's ticking up.
Yeah,
but I've seen downloads on the PS5 damn near saturate my gigabit. Like they absolutely look like they were downloading 80 to 100 megabytes a second.
That's a huge, because like the PS4.
PS4 was notoriously awful about download speeds. So like PS5 downloads, and Xbox is no slouch. Like I'm routinely seeing Xbox downloads going 500-600 megabits a second.
Yeah, even the Xbox One, even my launch Xbox One will it doesn't saturate the gigabit, but it goes fast, right?
Yeah, they're very nice, but really it's just the experience of playing the games with these things.
Yeah,
like you hear about like Astrobot and Miles Morales because those are first party games that were like made with the full, knowledge of what the hardware was going to be as early as possible, and like those are the ones where there is not even a loading screen. It's literally like it fades to black for like 2 seconds and then you're in.
Yeah,
but even games like Immortals, the Ubisoft kind of open world, Ancient Greece, Breath of the Wild kind of thing. Like that game still has loading screens. Like they didn't bother to take them out on the next gen versions, but like they almost might as well not be there. That's a game that is multi-platform, meaning that they, had to spread their efforts across a bunch of different platforms. It's an early launch game, so they didn't have like a lot of time to, come to grips with like the new libraries and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like it's a worst case scenario is what I'm saying. It's like, here is a game that is probably as hamstrung in development as a game is going to get on these platforms, and even it is loading so fast that like you can kind of just barely read the first tooltip on the loading screen. It's like 5 seconds. It's like 5 seconds. It's crazy.
How does that compare to like? Are you seeing the same benefits on PC or not so much?
It's comparable. Okay, like it's absolutely faster in some cases. Like in Spider-Man's case, for example, it is night and day even from a PC.
Yeah,
like,
I mean it's.
I did some, not that I'm like in the hardware benchmarking game, but I tried my hand at some load time benchmarking for a video like a year or two ago, year and a half, on just a commercial SATA 3 SSD. And like you were seeing loading times like 7, 8, 10 seconds.
Wow.
On a PC, which is like good.
Yeah.
But it's not hit X at the menu on the PS5 on Spider-Man, and like I clocked it from launching the game from the console UI to moving around in the game at like 7.5 seconds or something like that.
Does Spider-Man,
and from title screen, like loading your save game, it's like maybe 2 seconds tops.
Does Spider-Man see this is the thing, like for Animal Crossing, I would love to have like I want this for Animal Crossing because that's a game I want to load up and play for like 15 minutes, and it takes 5 minutes to go from like home screen to title screen to like walking out of my house. And there are a bunch of little loads in there every time you go in and out of a building and stuff like that. That's not as bad anymore. It's like a black screen, but yeah.
But stuff like that is kind of non-existent once you can load this fast, right?
And also like the loading other people's islands and stuff over the internet, it takes so long.
Oh my god, that would probably be on my list of the worst things of this year. Was dealing with the turnip economy and trying to get into hanging out on turnip.exchange.
Look, you got to get that turnip.exchange. That's
trying to get into other people's islands. It was such a mess. Like, oh, somebody's in their inventory right now, so you can't connect to this island. Like, what?
We did that this weekend for my sister-in-law because she's got a new island and she needed fast stacks of bells.
Oh my god!
And we ran a couple of bricks to some guy that had a 630 price, and he had four slots is too many slots, Brad. That's the thing we learned on Turnip Exchange is 2 slots. That's the most you can bring in and out. Anyway,
that's good. That's good to know.
I got a hardware audio mixer this year. It was a real quality of life improvement on the streaming game.
The Behringer?
I got a Behringer XR18, which was recommended by Vinny, Jason, and the fine folks in the TechPod Music Creators channel as like a really good, like punching way above its weight digital mixer. And I didn't really appreciate what digital mixers do until I started noodling with this versus like the old Yamahas and whatever that we used to use in the whiskey basement. And it is a lot smaller than an analog mixer because it doesn't have the big control panel. It's all software. But B, I can do so much weird stuff with it. And all of like my audio processing all happens in the file now instead of like me having to open up and run a bunch of processing and noise reduction and stuff like that, and gates and compressors and all that. And it lets me run compressors on the audio that comes from my computer. So if I'm listening to like a Twitch stream or watching something and it's going to blow out the audio, my ears don't suffer even though I've headphones on, which is nice. I love it.
It's kind of like on a film set, like any visual effects that you can do in camera on set.
You talk about the volume.
It's like any pre-processing you can do, let's say, like anything you can do up front.
Yeah.
Before it all goes in is less you have to do on the back end after the fact to fix things, right?
Anytime somebody says, fuck it, let's do it in post, that's going to cost like 50 or 100 grand.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That stuff sounds cool. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Here's the thing. Realistically, this is an XR. I got the XR18 and I only got it because it's the smallest one that they sell that has a digital output. So that has like a USB interface to the computer.
It does. Okay.
So if you go to the XR12, or I think there's an XR10 or an 8 or something, those are both analog outs only. So you can't, in order to get audio out of them, you have to plug them into another audio interface. It's in the back of the computer.
I had not even considered how you were actually getting the audio into the computer from the mixer.
Yes. So I plug the USB into the stream computer, and the analog outs go into an audio interface on my game PC, which is what I listen to, which is how like you're getting audio right now.
Right.
But on the stream PC, I have a DAW, a workstation. I use Voicemeeter to route all of the different channels coming out of the mixer independently. So like Discord only gets a voice channel, and I get a Streamlabs I get stream notifications back and all of that kind of, like it's a trip. But it means I get like an actual mix of the thing that I'm streaming, and I don't have to like open a video window and deal with 3 seconds of delay or whatever it is. So
yeah, a lot of new workflows to figure out this year.
Turns out workflows,
a lot of stuff. I've got this Stream Deck still sitting here that I haven't actually set up yet because it just.
Look, once you read Three Body Problem, you can can set that up. That's your permission.
It's been a lot of doing work to do work this year. You know what I mean? Like it's been hours and hours of figuring out how to do things in this situation so you can actually do things. You know what I mean? It's like it has quite literally been like a whole second job at times. Like there have been weeks where like half my work week was me crawling around under the desk, like plugging in, running video cables, like trying to understand like video compression and all kinds of stuff like that.
Figuring out how to do multiple camera inputs on a remote stream, it turns out, is really hard. Who knew?
Man, yeah.
What are you using your NAS for these days, Brad?
I will say I'm not super happy with how my little list turned out here because it feels very self-serving.
Well, that's what this kind of list is, dude.
Well, I guess I had intended to go into this to say like, here are like the 5 developments in tech that I liked this year. Like, oh, here, I was like, oh, maybe I'll get a space news story in there. Like what happened in cosmology this, you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing.
Osiris was pretty cool.
And instead I just ended up like, oh, here's all the stuff I'd spend my time with this year. But
I think that's the interest. Like so when I do this kind of list as a story, because I've been writing about tech for a long time now. My favorite part about this is when somebody says, oh, I totally did the exact same thing you did, but then I also did this other thing. And I want to hear the things that people have done. Like I'm sharing this stuff because I want to know what are the things that have made your life better, because if it made your life better, it can make a bunch of other people's lives better.
Like I know we've talked about that before. That's the fun. That is the most gratifying aspect of this is you can either teach people about stuff or you can learn stuff from them,
and both at the same time.
It's just kind of right. It's just like, two-way exchange of information. Anyway, having this NAS turned out to be like indispensable for the work that I ended up having to do here. Like I suddenly needed to archive tens to hundreds of gigabytes of video at a time.
Did you just have a big stack of hard drives in the side there?
In the NAS?
Like outside, or are you still filling up the NAS with the...
Oh, no, it all just fits on the NAS. I don't keep stuff. Like I'm not keeping stuff for months at a time. That's just like 1 week's worth of 1 or 2 weeks worth of video would be...
Because you archive and put them on S3 or something.
I'm archiving stuff at like 30 megabits here.
Yeah.
To upload to the site and be recompressed.
Got it.
So that's why it's so big. So like trying to do the fuzzy math here, like a 2.5 hour stream could be 40, 50 gigabytes. Like it adds up quickly.
Yeah, it's a good thing you have fiber.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Not everybody on the staff was lucky enough to benefit from that kind of thing, but having that bulk storage on the network to dump footage on was super useful. Having built it with a 6700K, which seemed very excessive at the time I did it, turned out to be nice because I ended up like learning enough FFmpeg that I ended up doing some footage conversion on the box without having to like copy it over, which was nice.
Yeah.
And then like, honestly, the big thing is this is the year that I probably turned the corner on like being in a Unixy kind of environment.
Yeah, you started writing bash scripts and all sorts of crazy stuff.
Like just little stuff, not nothing too crazy.
But that's how it works, right?
Yeah, but yes, like I got comfortable enough in a shell and like piping stuff, like Unix pipes and stuff like that, and bash, like some shell scripts and some stuff like that. Like it all just kind of like that's kind of all computing, right? Is that you're like flailing around in the dark for months to years at a time, and then one day like you solve a problem without knowing that you would be able to solve the problem, and then it's like, oh, I guess I understand this now.
Honestly, it's like the Fusion thing. Like I'd been using SketchUp and tools like Fusion 360 for a really long time. I did that Mr. Case, which is probably the most ambitious thing I've ever tried to do. And then one day I was like, I'm just going to stream me finishing this because I'm kind of at a loss. I didn't know exactly how to do the final steps to pretty stuff up. And I feel like Ycross from the Discord and from my Twitch channel popped up in that stream and was like, hey, here, I use this all the time. Do you want some help? Do you want backseating? I was like, yes, please backseat me. And I learned so much in like 20 minutes of having somebody who knew what they were doing watch over my shoulder and tell me, oh, you can do it this way and it'll take a long time. But if you just click this and then hit that button, then it'll do it. And the upshot is that now when I open up Fusion, I know where to start. And I feel like you had that same turn on the command line stuff this year.
Yeah. Yes. I've just been spending inordinate amounts of time honestly, since I built that thing a couple of years ago, but especially this year.
Well, and it's like the difference between like looking for an example script to figure out how to adapt it to do what you want to do, and just starting out the script and then looking for the commands to do the thing that you need the script to do.
Totally. Yes. At one point, I just wrote a script, and then I was like, then I had to find out what prep does, or I was like, I need something that can search running processes and filter stuff through there, and it's a lot of running into problems and having to solve them is how you learn stuff like that. Right?
That's how I learned how to do computer stuff 30 years ago.
Like the time that I threw the FreeNAS interface, I was like, I should see what these ACLs are about on my network share. And then I hosed all of the permissions across the entire NAS.
Nice work. Did you recover? Did you have to rebuild?
Couldn't access anything. So that was how I quickly had to I mostly do how to use chmod, but I really had to learn how to do it. I really had to in the space of one command, how can I set every directory on this NAS, or how can I flip the execute flag on for every directory on this NAS without doing it on every file and stuff like that? You know what I mean? Yes, you're yawning. You're yawning enormously. I know. Oh no,
that's just engaging. A nightmare. I've had nightmares about that.
I know it's a little bit in the weeds. But,
you're one step ahead of me on that. I don't mess with command line outside of jails on the FreeNAS box because I'm afraid I'll mess up something and jack up the permissions.
That was actually the best thing I did all year, and I don't know why I never did this before. Was all the jails on there? I just have, they're all kind of single purpose. Yeah, it's like here's my Plex jail, here's the Cups jail, which is the print server. Stuff like that. But I was like, why don't I just make a multi-purpose general purpose one that I can just do whatever with and not worry about, because you can just delete it and start over, right? So I just made a jail. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to install anything I can think of and want to tinker with in here and don't care about.
And then spin it out into its own later on. If you want to use it.
It's just kind of a temp makeshift jail for whatever I'm going to mess with. I'm going to try messing with some FFmpeg stuff here, or whatever thing I want to install and mess with. It's just this thing is disposable and I can just hose it and start over without any risk.
I never even considered that.
That's where I did all the kind of scripting and stuff that, and I just mounted all my storage pool in there so I could access the files, and it's very handy.
Well, I mean, is there a performance? I guess there's a little bit of a performance overhead on having
not
each
really,
jail.
No,
not really.
No, because you're not really virtualizing anything.
Yeah,
so jails in BSD, and the equivalent in Linux is LXC. I guess is how you say it. I don't know if anybody pronounces it Lexi. It's the acronym is LXC.
Okay.
For Linux containers. In both cases, all they're using is namespacing and kind of.
It's like a permissions bucket kind of, right?
Yes, it's like an arbitrary kind of sandboxing, basically. Yeah. All it's doing is the kernel is just saying these processes, these user accounts, whatever exist within this sandbox that can't touch the rest of whatever's running in memory. And so, there's essentially no performance overhead because it's all just running on the system kernel.
There was one news story that I thought was really interesting this year that was a techie and relevant, and that's that. People have used streaming tech for more than just games for a long. We did a talk show 10 years ago, right? A weekly magazine style. The happy hour every week. So people were doing more than just game stuff for a really long time. But I feel like the coverage on the ground of the Black Lives Matter protests that happened this summer and fall was the first time I saw that being used by more than news organizations and things like that. And the fact that people were streaming, you could there was on the ground truth live video of on the ground truth, hours and hours and hours of the scenes from those protesters, so you could actually see what was happening versus just having the, one side say one side thing and one side say the other, which is what's always happened in the past. And we saw a little bit of that with Occupy and stuff like that. But the stuff that was the way the streaming technology wasn't good enough for the video that was coming out of it. So you couldn't, like, as soon as anything started moving, the video would break down because 3G cellular wasn't fast enough. And now we saw like really like unequivocal footage of a lot of things, so that it wasn't just one side said one thing, one side said the other. You could see where stuff started. I think
we finally hit the tipping point on the quality of the tech, where it's kind of a historic moment, honestly, where the tech can actually affect sociological change now. It's like, the analogy that I thought of is the way that wasn't kind of earlier social media pretty instrumental in the Arab Spring.
Yeah, that was the one I was going to mention.
And that was like early Facebook and stuff like that.
It was Twitter. It was almost all Twitter. Yeah, so people were they weren't blocking Twitter because it came over SMS in Egypt and
interesting.
I want to say Jordan maybe, but I can't remember where the other ones were.
I'm looking for a date.
That was in 2000.
Considered to be kind of 2010 is when it started.
10 or 11, I think.
So that was pretty early Twitter and that sort of thing.
Well, and because Twitter operated over SMS, they didn't block SMS Twitter for a long time. So they were using 144 character messages as to organize and say where to be and where not to be, so that it was harder for the government to crack down on them.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, like this totally has the feel of that to me, of like the tech hit a point where it's actually very useful in this role and not just kind of a sideshow. It's like crucial to.
Yeah. And and there were enough. The other thing is, because everybody has phones and everybody has 4G connections that were good, you were actually seeing multiple viewpoints of the same thing. So there wasn't like there was enough video to watch and see, here's the video of the person throwing the bottle at the police line. Here's the video of the police firing, hundreds of rounds of tear gas and rubber bullets and all of that shit back at people because one maniac hucked something at them. And it becomes really clear. I mean, there's bad stuff that comes with that too. Like there was a lot of like online sleuthing about who threw the bottle that ended up being really bad information and like hurting people who had done nothing wrong and things like that. But also we found at the same time you found the people who were responsible for doing bad stuff. So anyway, it's a good thing, I think.
Yeah, on the whole, to me, it's kind of the upside of the internet's ability to like disseminate propaganda and misinformation and kind of radicalize people as a result. This is sort of the I don't know, how would you put it? This kind of has a chastening effect on that sort of thing of being able to say, here's what actually happened. Here's the video. Like, this is hard to refute, at least until we enter the awful deepfake future in another 5 or 10 years where you can no longer trust video.
Well, then you have to have your machine learning algorithm that's trained to recognize deepfake video to tell you whether video is true or false.
So just robots fighting other robots is where we're headed.
Electronic thumb. I mean, one of the things and one of the recurring themes when we started out with this podcast, we were both in a place where like I wasn't sure that the internet was a good thing anymore.
Yeah.
And it was one of the things that we were talking about a lot. And I feel like, I mean, like most technology, it is not an unequivocal good or bad thing. There are good and bad aspects to everything that we've done over the last 20 years. But I feel like I'm starting to see things that give me hope that maybe the internet is actually good. And the stuff that's happened in 2020 has accelerated that in a lot of ways. Yeah. Both the good and the bad, frankly. I mean, we saw the bad in the election, the post-election nonsense from the president. And anyway,
yes, it can be hard to maintain optimism, but social change happens slowly, and I guess you have to remember that it may feel like we are entering a period of permanent dystopia, but maybe that's not actually the case, and that some of these things are self-correcting over time.
Hopefully, I got a couple of small things. Like products that I have added that have made my life a little bit better. Can we talk about your monitors? Are you happy with monitors? Are you happy to have new monitors? Or are they still kind of a mixed bag?
Mixed bag. I had not played any games on them when I was first belly aching about their downsides.
Okay.
And pretty good for games.
360 hertz monitor that NVIDIA sent me to try has been a life-altering
wow
change.
These are not 360 hertz cool, but they are not bad.
Well, I mean, for most games, you're not going to hit 360 hertz. So like 144, 165, whatever's fine.
You play a game at a semi-professional kind of level, right?
I mean, not as much as I used to, but yes, kind of. I got velour ear cups for my headphones.
Okay.
I needed to replace them.
Ooh.
And somebody had said, hey, why don't you check out these? There's velour and like you can get like suede ones too.
Are those made by the manufacturer or are they aftermarket?
These are aftermarket. The ones I got are Brainwaves and they fit on my HMD 380s.
Huh.
But you can get them for almost any like Sennheiser Audio-Technica kind of like production headphones because they're all designed to have removable headband pads and cups. And these have memory foam with velour on the outside, and they made the headphones sound a little bit different, but they're very comfy.
Wow.
And they don't get anywhere near as sweaty as the fake leather ones did.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about ear cups on headphones having a propensity to break down over time, come apart or get gross. But
I mean, the foam doesn't last forever, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I've got a pair of old PS3 era Sony wireless headphones, Bluetooth. Yeah. No, they have their own USB adapter. But anyway, they'd been in a drawer for some number of years.
Ugh.
And I got them out, and they had just like the I don't know, is it foam? I don't know what the black covering over the ear cups is.
It's usually like some sort of soft plastic.
It had just disintegrated and was just in bits all over the drawer.
So it's funny. I have a set of Sony, those MDR, whatever the cheap references, like the $100 studio reference headphones are. I have a couple of pairs of those, and every single one of those, the pads have done that same thing. Like they basically, like whatever the coating is on the outside of the pad has just melted.
Yeah, you think they'd maybe stop using material like that, but
I mean, you can't sell more pads if the pads stay good forever, Brad.
Yeah.
I figured out what kind of keyboard switches I like after trying a bunch.
Nice.
And I got a life hack for getting those and not spending $1 bazillion doing it. I just ordered for $15, you can get like 60 keys from AliExpress. It takes 2 months to get here, but I got $15 worth of 4 different kinds of keys.
Wow.
And for what I would have paid for a complete set of the normal keys for my keyboard.
That's intense.
If I'd bought them in the US. And I like Kale Silent Blacks, it turns out. They're linear.
Interesting. Okay.
They're a little heavier than the red, so I don't like rest my keys on the keyboard and type a bunch of Ds. But they feel really good, and I like them a lot.
One day I will be brave enough to take the plunge and order something from AliExpress, but I haven't quite gotten there yet.
Look, you just have to give them your credit card and your social security number. It's fine.
They sure do have some cheap stuff on there, though.
You don't really have to give them your social security number. Also,
no, of course. Or specifically, they have cheap stuff that is the same stuff that is more expensive elsewhere.
That's exactly it.
That's what it is. It's not just they have cheap stuff. It's it's that same thing I saw on Amazon, except for like 2/3 the price.
Like, I feel like you could probably arbitrage a real good business out of selling keyboard switches. I mean, on Amazon.
I assume that is exactly what some of those people are doing.
Yeah. The Nest, I got Gina for her birthday. We got her a Nest Hub Mini, one of those little Nest things with the screen.
Yeah.
And it's hooked up to Google Photos.
That's great.
It uses machine learning and algorithms to post pictures of us and our family doing fun things from the past. And it's been a source of real joy. Like having a digitally connected photo frame is very cool.
People need more sources of joy right now.
Yeah. Yeah. You got anything you want to drag? Anything that sucks, Brad?
Yeah. Video conferencing platforms could be better.
I'm probably good never video conferencing again at this point.
That's probably not totally fair, because most of them are fine for what they are actually used for or for their intended purpose. It's just that we are trying to use them for things that they are not really meant for.
I feel like they could all be better.
Let's say if you were trying to have a video conference and get all of those feeds into a stream to send back out, that's where the problems arise. Every single service, literally every service we have tried, has got one or more downsides when that's the kind of end goal. Is whether it's latency or quality or both, or not being able to elegantly capture it into a video, like an OBS or some kind of compositing system and send it back out. Like everything has got some problem to it.
Or
like
lip sync becomes a problem for no reason whatsoever when you try to ingest it. Yeah, no, it's great.
Skype was the closest. Like this fucking kills me. Like we tried the Skype NDI stuff and it's amazing.
Yeah, but the lip sync is always a problem.
No, it's the audio quality.
Oh, really?
I don't know what's going on there, but like the audio quality was so bad, like people were not having it. And like Vinny is absolutely right. The thing he says about people will forgive bad video way before they will ever forgive bad audio.
Absolutely. Like you could post a 320 by 240 picture of a potato on YouTube, and if the audio is good, nobody cares.
Yes. Like it's not unintelligible. It just is kind of low quality, lo-fi sounding, like just kind of thin and compressed. But like how is the audio compression the problem in 2020? Like that's the thing that blows my mind. It sounds like the little bit I read about it, it sounds like that Skype is just pretty behind the times on their audio tech.
I mean, the stuff that like Discord uses with Opus and those new audio codecs is really impressive.
Yeah, totally. Like it's just not up to that quality level, but like the video stuff and particularly getting the video into OBS is amazing. Like if they just fixed their audio back end, so like that would be the solution.
What if you use
it kills me.
Discord for audio and Skype know where you're going video. With this.
I considered it.
And then you just have to sync each one individually through magic.
I didn't try it because, again, it takes a lot of time to set up and test this stuff. But I didn't bother putting the time in because I just assumed that it would be too off, right? It would just be off enough that it would look terrible. Like I just assumed there's no way that the video and audio would sync close enough between two different services like that.
Well, I mean, the thing that annoys me is that there's no why is there no NDI plugin for Discord or Zoom or Jitsi or one of the other 15 video services except for fucking Skype?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, it works. It works amazingly. It's so cool. Like because each person is their own source in OBS, right? Like each person is a separate video feed. You're not having to like
if somebody has to leave early, you can just turn them off, and it's not like you're capturing a window and then like
Each person gets their own volume slider, so you can control everybody's audio independently. You're not having to like there are problems now where like we have to window capture a browser to get people's feed in, and like. Some of those services, there are problems where it's like, oh, if I put another video window over top of this window I'm capturing, it'll black out all the footage that it's pulling in. You know, just weird little like, I don't know, GDI or some like Windows graphics subsystem issues, stuff like that. Like there are so many considerations that people don't see that are such a pain in the ass, and like nobody's figured that stuff out.
The one thing that I will say, especially I can't imagine for folks like you who do this like, 8+ hours a day sometimes, like, we are very lucky that I'm like the setup that I have at home for streaming to Twitch now is basically the same as what we were using to do Whiskey Media stuff in like 2011.
Yeah.
Like functionally
at a tenth of the cost, 100th of the cost,
100th like probably. Yeah. I mean, I think we spent $250,000 all in on all the cameras and everything, lights and all that.
Yes.
So like in that regard, yes, it's amazing. On the other hand, one of a former coworker of mine who is now at NVIDIA once said that Linux is only free if you value your time at zero.
If your time is worthless.
Yeah. And like, it's very much that same thing. Like you trade, hey, I didn't spend $100,000 setting this stuff up it's going to take me 4 hours to figure out how to do something new. And then it's going to be janky for a little while and then it'll eventually work, which is why everybody's streams like it's why even people who have thousands and thousands and thousands of live viewers on every stream that they do it still start shit with no audio half the time.
Yeah. The potential for things to go wrong, and particularly things that seem like they should be exactly like they were the last time.
It's never exactly the same.
But somehow aren't.
Yeah.
Like it's infinite. Like the number of things that can break is functionally infinite.
Well, so one of the things I've started doing like as a consulting thing is helping companies figure out their Twitch streaming stuff, because it turns out nobody knows how to do it and everybody's bad at it. So I was telling somebody the other day, and this is going to be one of the rules that I put into like here's your cheat sheet for getting started. Never, ever change anything with the setup on the day of a stream.
Yeah. Yes.
Like if you stream, and also it's way easier to stream every day than it is to stream once a week or once a month, because the amount of drift you get on a month from like Windows updates, jacking up your audio settings or whatever. Anyway. Yeah. It's a weird future we live in.
It's a mess.
I got one future tech I'm stoked about after this year. The ultra wideband stuff that they put in the new iPhones, not the 5G fast internet, which seems like snake oil, but the ultra wideband radio that they use to 3D position phones with other phones and your AirPods Pro or your AirPods Max with relation to the phone. So like one of the things that you can do with the new iPhone, if you have not the original AirPods, but one of the ones with the UWB chips, is that the phone will know where it is in relation to the AirPods. So you can set the sound up so that it sounds like the AirPods, like the music you're listening to in your AirPods is coming from your phone.
Weird.
Like the source is in there. Like it's completely
real
useless.
Time? Like, can you actually wave the phone around and it can keep up with
the phone around and it moves in relation to your,
That's wild.
I haven't actually done it. I don't know if they may have pulled it from the betas to now. I saw people writing about it. I have base model AirPods, not the fancy ones. And I definitely didn't buy AirPods. Don't buy AirPods Max also, unless you just want to, if you want to burn money, that's fine, I guess. But anyway, I think that is going to be, that is my pick for like seemingly useless technology that's going to be incredibly important in the next like 5 to 10 years.
I just started to say that has the sound of a thing that is novel and useless on the surface. Yeah. Like the thing you're talking about is just like, oh, that's interesting for 30 seconds. But 6 months or a year from now, somebody is going to come up with some like life-changing application of that ability. I
mean, hopefully it's life-changing in a good way and not like, hey, everybody knows the store knows where your eyeballs are, so they can position ads so that only you see them or something really horrific. But yeah, it's I think that's really cool.
Just don't say that out loud.
Look, you have to opt in. It's Apple. Yeah. They're going up against Facebook. I think we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Last thing I'll mention real fast, just since you were talking about some products you're enjoying.
Oh, okay.
I am really having a good time with this 3080, which sounds like, of course.
Yeah, it turns out having a fast video card is really nice, huh?
It's not. I mean, yes, it's great to have a card that runs games very fast, but it's the ray tracing stuff for me. It's that I have not. This is my first ray tracing capable card. I didn't have a 20 series card.
Did you do? Have you played Quake yet?
Yeah, so that was the very first thing I loaded up when I got it was Quake 2. And so like there's been some stuff going on there. Like my Minecraft RTX came out of beta and is just out now.
Yeah, you can just use normal ass worlds with it now.
You can just make worlds now with ray tracing, which and it's kind of trivial to an end user, but Quake 2 got updated to support the Vulkan ray tracing extensions a week or two ago, which is more, again, it looks the same to it was using NVIDIA. I haven't looked at any benchmarks. I couldn't tell a huge difference in performance, but it is an indication that like Vulkan has got all its ray tracing stuff sorted out on the back end now, which is cool. That's good. But whatever. You're the same as me. Like I've been a huge graphics nerd since the first 3DFX card. Since like even prior to that, like I didn't know it at the time, but I guess it started with Doom. But it really started with Quake when I got into Quake and realized that the character models were full 3D, and I was like slowly panning the camera around the character models and just like completely blown away just marveling at these like perspective correct characters instead of the the shitty poster board bitmaps that Doom used. You know what I mean?
For me it was the 15 HP boxes when I was like, oh shit, this is a cube, not just a sprite that looks like a cube. Right.
Yes. Right. So it's just that yet again, it's like, it was 3D character models and like fully 3D space with like rooms on top of rooms in Quake 1, and then like colored lighting in Quake 2, transparent water, like curved surfaces, NURBS. Oh yeah. The shadowing in Doom. Like it's just one thing after, physics, like material physics behaviors in Half-Life 2. Like it's just the latest iteration of that, like playing around with Minecraft and Quake has just been like, I'm back to being 16 again and just marveling at how far things have come and what they're capable of doing now. Well,
I mean, it's funny because like we talked about DLSS a few weeks ago, but like to me that is I think that's going to end up like the ray tracing stuff is important and it's gorgeous and it's when it works, like even in a game that is kind of busted in a lot of ways, like Cyberpunk, the ray tracing stuff looks unbelievable in that game. And I think that like that's the if we're doing the 4K as a metaphor here, Like 4K is the thing everybody likes because like, oh, four times as many pixels as your 1080p set. That sounds great. But the thing that makes 4K sets look good is HDR, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the situation we're in with ray tracing is that like ray tracing is really cool, but it is not performing in completely novel ways.
That's the problem.
And it's not until you flip on the DLSS equivalent that all of a sudden that stuff works. And I think when that stuff comes to the consoles and the AMD chips, we're going to see a real boom in ray tracing and where it's done and applied and all that stuff.
I mean, sticking with your HDR metaphor, like for me, it is, and the reason I keep harping on Quake and Minecraft is, for me, it's not games where it's like, oh, our reflections are ray traced, or like, oh, certain types of shadows are ray traced. It's games where it's just ray tracing and nothing else. And like, that's why those games are so impressive to me, is that they are both just fully path traced. And that is it for their lighting model. You know what I mean? Games that use it, and those get like big commercial AAA games that use ray tracing in a fully generalized way like that are probably a good long ways off.
Or they'll be, well, I mean, Metro did that, right?
Kind
Metro
of.
is all path trace lighting.
They had a global illumination model, I believe. Like Digital Foundry put out a good Cyberpunk video. Like Cyberpunk is using it very extensively, but there are still hybrid effects.
Right.
But it's much closer to like a fully ray traced situation.
I want to say it's the inside spaces in Metro that are fully path traced, and anything when you're in the overworld has a global source from the sun. Maybe I can't remember.
That might be, you might be right. But like that, and again, this is kind of academic. This is not something that most people are going to look at and care about, but like, just knowing that every single surface is interacting with every other surface, like all those interactions are sort of quote unquote real or correct or natural.
More
you know
real.
What I mean? It's like, well, yeah, obviously everything has got a limit. Everything is constrained in some way, right? But you know what I mean, though? It's like, oh, the bounce lighting is from here, it's affecting there, and like this is refracting onto that, and like all that stuff is just, I don't know, it's just endlessly fascinating to me.
I mean, anytime there's a shift in the way that stuff has worked, like when we went from fixed pipeline 3D renderers to general programmable pipeline 3D renderers with like the DX8 over the course of DX7 to DX9, right? Like it took a while for that stuff to make any kind of impact outside of some really specialized like one-off things that people could add late in the development pipeline.
Right.
And the thing that's cool about the ray tracing stuff is we're seeing it in all sorts of stuff really, or like even in the console games, like even in Miles Morales, when you watch somebody play Miles Morales, the fact that if the lighting is right in the room when he goes in and does one of those terminal sequences where he has to do the hacking game or whatever, like you see his reflection in the glass. And like, I don't think I'm ever going to get tired of that being right when it pops up. Like
totally.
It's so cool. And it like, that's a bad example because it would be an easy thing to fake since the character and the camera position are fixed. Yeah. But like still, it's just really neat. I think.
If anybody cares about the tech of this stuff, the Cyberpunk video that Alex from Digital Foundry just put out a few days ago is the single best, like side by side. Here is what this is like with ray tracing on and off video that I have seen to date.
And are they comparing PC to PC?
Yes.
Okay.
Same scenes, same shots, same everything. But it's a ton of like, okay, here's how they're faking this lighting, and here are some of the artifacts and drawbacks and limitations of doing it that way. And here is how ray tracing just makes all of that go away and just does it quote unquote the right way.
I'll have to go watch that. That sounds awesome.
And it's very mundane stuff. It's like, here's this alleyway that is lit in a completely unnatural way because of the way all these light probes are overlapping with each other. Here's what happens when you switch to ray tracing, and now this alleyway is just like lit more or less like you would expect it to be in reality.
It's funny because playing cool. that, I've noticed that my normal thing where I set the gamma up a little bit higher than the developer probably wants you to, so you can see details in the dark areas, is totally jacking up the ray tracing in the dark alleys. Because it's too bright and it looks like
it's washed out.
It looks washed out and really weird. So I need to turn it back down a little bit. Everybody should send the Digital Foundry folks some love because they caught a lot of shit about telling the truth for just from the mere act of telling the truth about a game that had problems.
It's hardly the worst or most dire thing that happened on the internet this year, but man, like the console warfare around those launches was the worst I have ever seen it by
I thought we were done with that shit, and because it didn't happen with the Xbox One and PS4 very much.
No, not too much. No, like holy crap, man! Like I was just waiting. I was like, any day now, people are just going to literally start screaming fake news at those guys when they post benchmarks that they don't want to hear.
Yeah. Anyway, Digital Foundry does good stuff. I love what they do, and I hadn't seen that video. I'll have to go track it down.
It's really good. Very informative.
I think that wraps it up.
Yes, I'll stop rambling now.
If you're listening to this, there's probably already a patron episode out. That's our first patron spotlight, and since he tweeted about it, I think we can tell who it was. Right?
I don't know.
Maybe we shouldn't.
Maybe we should make sure before we say anything.
Maybe we just say that. Maybe we'll just say that he takes photographs on other planets and leave it at that.
Sure, we'll put that out there. Yeah.
It is a really good, really good conversation about what it's like to do a fascinating job with one of our patrons. We're going to do more patron spotlights in the future.
It was one of the most fascinating conversations I've ever had with somebody.
Yeah. It was absolutely fantastic.
I could have sat there and asked questions for another 3 hours.
I mean, I could have kept going indefinitely. So, so definitely check that out. If you want to find out how to support the podcast, which we appreciate all of our patrons, you can go to patreon.com/techpod. That's patreon.com/techpod. And for $2, you get access to the fabulous TechPod Discord, where we just recently added a HeadFi channel. We added headphones and speakers and listening. Okay. We've had music production for a long time.
Yeah.
But we had a gap there. There's that. There's the parenting channel, which I've been enjoying. I don't know what else. Some food stuff. Food stuff has been really good around the holidays.
Yeah.
And just Mr. Questions answer. That's right. It's a wide variety of topics available now.
Hang out in the Mr. channel and keep up with the ongoing SD-RAM controversy.
And when our second our next podcast, Scene Drama, starts, where we already have stuff ready to go.
I know, that's right. Endless material.
So whose fault is it, man? Is it the RAM manufacturer's, Brad?
I don't think so.
The memory controller writer?
Let's not point any fingers.
Okay. That's probably the safe answer.
Let's say the ideal outcome seems to be coming to pass, which is that all parties are coming together to collaborate on a solution.
I think everybody's working really hard to try to give people a good experience.
That's the ideal, is you just want everybody to work together and be on the same page.
And since this is the last episode of the month and the year, I guess we should thank all of our patrons.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you. Huge thank you to our executive producer level patrons, James Kamek, David Allen, Andrew Cotton, and Jacob Chappell. And also a mega thanks to our associate producer level patrons, Graham Banks, Thomas Shea, Jad Rita, Dan Brockman, Dave Ulian, Ben Gulmy, The Bunny Fiend, Arthur Geese, Terry Cox, Jacob Wilson, Tom Hilton, and Sean Talon. Thank you all so much for supporting the show. And thanks to everybody, whether you are on the Discord or just telling your friends on Twitter or Facebook or I guess the Gram. I don't know. People wanted to send us your best TechPod inspired TikToks, I guess.
Sure.
You can email. And also I would love to hear the things that have impacted you this year, technology wise or other. Email them to techpod@content.town and we'll maybe read some of them on a future episode, or just you share the good ones so that we can spread the love.
Absolutely.
Brad, I hope you have a wonderful holiday, and I guess I'll talk to you next year.
Yeah, same to you and everyone listening.
Yeah,
let's all just take a few days and catch our breaths and spend time with loved ones virtually or otherwise.
Yeah, that's it. Wear a mask, wash your hands, stay safe. And I hope everybody has a good holiday and a happy new year.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
We'll be back next year with more Tech Pods. Bye, everybody.